Boys, we did it again. Yet again, this was 2 weeks ago, so I probably should have made a video earlier, but here we are. 2 weeks ago, I ran the half marathon again. And not only did I run it again, I also made it like slightly longer because I think I ran like an extra 400 kilometers, maybe 500, and I checked on maps, and the place where I ran up to was like precisely 11 kilometers. So I did like a precise 22-kilometer run, meaning that my last one, which I did almost a year ago, was slightly shorter. But it doesn't matter because now we finally actually run the full race, and I'm proud of myself. And I'll tell you a story. It's not going to be as long as the one I told back in April when I told the story of how I ran a half marathon at 15, but I'll give you the specific details. So, already from like 3 months, I'd say, I was already planning to like restart with my long distance running because with school I had little time to actually do proper runs. I could do like a 5 or 4 kilometer every now and then, but I prefer to aim higher and to try and do longer runs. And so recently, not really recently, like I believe in April, I actually ran a 10K. I did from my house to like, I did like the entire coast and then came back. Not the entire coast, I did like a small piece of the coast and then came back. And that was like 10 kilometers. But I had to wait 2 months to actually get my next long run. And as we know, though, this long run was the longest I've ever done. So, a lot of you know that I made a video which was pretty much a guide to David Goggins' book Can't Hurt Me. And in one of the books, in one of the chapters, I explained that he suggests you do like the post-it mirror where you attach different post-its to the mirror, and with like each post-it there's a goal. And I did pretty much the same. And what I put as a goal was to restart long distance running, and I had written down a 10K, I think a 15K, and a 22K, and then like a double 15K, I think. So like a 15K, then there's a break, and then another 15K. And so yeah, initially, when I decided that I was going to do a run that day, I aimed to do 10K because it was a while since I had last run, and so I thought that it would be better to start lower so then I could progressively overload, seeing as I still wasn't completely used to long distance running. It'd been like a year since I had run the half marathon, almost a year. So I prepared myself. I think I had like an energy bar and some water, I think that's it. And then I set off. And already when I started running, I felt as if I had to do slightly more than 10K because I'd done 10K last time, even though it was 2 months ago. And so I wanted to like progressively overload and do like slightly more than last time. And so I got to the point where I had to turn to do the full 10K. But then I felt as if, yeah, I had to go beyond. So I went beyond. And then when I got to beyond, I still felt as if I could do much more. So then I continued the run, and I had already chosen a point where I should turn. It was like this church which was in the beach. So I was like, okay, I'll get there. Then I'll turn, it will be around 15K, maybe even more than 15K. But even before I got to that church, I had already gotten the feeling that I would go beyond that. And I already had the feeling that I was gonna have to do another half marathon. I felt the adrenaline, I felt the excitement. I knew that I had to not only replicate the half marathon run, but that I should also go beyond and do like the full run, like the full 22K, and then go back. Because last time, just to explain, the reason why I turned before earlier than I pretty much should have was because the last part was like, it wasn't in the beach. I would have to like cross a couple of roads and it was like a bit risky, and so I preferred to turn back earlier. But this time I did the full thing in the end, and I turned once I got to the point where it was like a full 11 kilometers. Now, an interesting thing was that during the run, I was overtaking many other runners. And counting them, I think I overtook a total of 7 other runners, and no one ever overtook me. And it was like a certified fact that none of the runners were even doing like near what I was doing. Maybe some of them were doing like a 10K, but I think all of them were like from 1K to 10K. No one actually did 22K like I did. And I was overtaking them all. And yeah, most of them were old men, but we'll try and ignore that. But I think overtaking them like gives me, it strengthens my mentality, because I'm like, I know it's a bit cringe saying this, but I'm like, I feel like I'm the top of the game and like everyone else is like weak. And so I have that kind of mentality, which is a bit cringe, but it helps me like cope during the run. It helps me progress and it helps me get to the end. And so I overtook 7 people. By the time I was like already like at 12K, I was already like exhausted. I was already thinking of stopping. But the advantage of doing like a proper run instead of like going on a cartwheel, and I explained this last time, is that like if you stop at that point, you have to find a way to get back home. So like if I stopped at the halfway point, I'd have to take the bus, and I had no t-shirt, I had no wallet. So like if they went to check in if I had a ticket or not, they would find nothing because I would have no ticket. And so I had to finish the race. Otherwise, it would have taken me ages to get back home. I could have gone walking, but that would have taken me like 2 hours. And if it took me that much, by the time I was home, like dinner had already been served, and my parents would have been quite mad at me. So I had to finish the run. Well, like if you're in a cartwheel, you finish the run and you're still in the gym. So like there's no problem with it. So the moment I finished the run, it was quite funny. I crossed the road and there was like this small park area, and there was this spot which was just under a tree, which was like all shade, because this was in June. It was like 30, I wouldn't say 30. It was like quite late, so maybe it was like 25 degrees, but it was quite hot. And so I got in this place in the shade under the tree, and I literally like, I laid there on the ground, exhausted. My armpits were literally they had like this stinging sensation from the sweat. My elbow joints were kind of hurting because the entire time I'd been like in a runner's position with like my elbows in this position. So having them straight for once, like my elbows felt really weird. And it took me like 20 seconds to realize I had to stop my stopwatch because I had the timer on. I stopped it. I looked at it and it said that it had taken me 1 hour and 45 minutes to do that run, which I didn't think much of that first, but when I talked to other people after the run, they told me that it was really good. Like, even my hockey coach seemed oddly shocked at the fact that I did it in 1 hour and 45 minutes. So, I hope you enjoyed the video. I still kind of have to work on my storytelling abilities, I'd say, at the moment. And, well, I hope that video inspired you. Keep a strong mind and stay like a lion.